IVM.
Hi, everybody. Just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Hello and welcome to Simblified. This is part 2 of deconstructing metaverse, which is actually the third episode on metaverse that we're doing, but it is the future, so why not? I am Tony and I'm joined by Chuck.
Oh, yes, that's me. Yes. Sorry, I was just checking out my virtual gardens in my metaverse. So it's just the two of us today, as was the previous episode, because our other two boys are actually off doing real things in the real world.
Doing research for future episodes.
Yeah, that's what they are. They're along. They're on ground with our team of researchers. Someday we'll actually send somebody to Silicon Valley to cover these events and all. Oh, in the metaverse, you would need to do that.
Oh, yeah. Because portability, which we didn't discuss last time, is one of the...
Yeah. No, we'll talk about that this time. So in the last episode, we spoke about what the metaverse is, what it could be, why this is important for Facebook's business, the little things that they're doing right now. And in this episode, what I want to do, this is initially supposed to be an addendum to the previous episode, but because Tony and I have a habit of turning a 15-minute discussion point into like this podcast could have been a bullet point list. We ended up doing a 45-minute episode over there, meaning that, hey, you now have a separate episode now. So what I want to talk about in this particular episode is sort of like what we had done for that one live event that we had done long back, Tony, if you remember, because of COVID, what all will end up happening in the future. So it's sort of like that, but not taking as creative a leap. So I have a few points over here for discussion, and I'd love to know what you think about all of these. So let's just get right into it. I don't have a profundity today because...
But before we get into the future, there's this really good tweet about the past of Facebook. This is from @RGA, which said, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you can target him with fishing equipment ads for a lifetime.
This is genius. RGA's Twitter account is fantastic. By far the best account that's run by a app. So let's start off with a fairly simple one. In about 10 years, virtual reality devices will become what smartphones are today, in the sense they will be ubiquitous, they will be cheap. We cannot imagine life without one, even though just 10 years back, you could very easily imagine life without one and say, why would anyone need one for play, let alone work? And chances also, obviously, then are Geo will launch a cheap version of a virtual reality device called the Geo Next or something like that for 2,000 rupees or whatever inflation leads us to at that point of time. So that's thing number one. Just like how we pretty much have a smartphone here right now, we will also have a virtual reality device. Now, whether it's in the same big clunky format as an Oculus Rift is in right now, or whether it's integrated with glasses like Facebook's experiment with Ray-Ban, or whether it is LASIKed into our irises.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that could be a thing, right? Yeah. Why not? I say, why not?
It's like getting a tattoo.
It's like getting a tattoo, and that kind of technology, I think, already exists. I think there is one company in Sweden or something, or Japan. Somehow, I think it's more likely to be Japan. I don't know why. Where you can actually get a chip embedded via tattoo-like technology into your arm, so that you can do cashless payments. Yeah, it's more likely to be Sweden, purely because Japan is actually more of a cash economy. So where Scandinavia is more cashless. So it's like, so you can just imagine you have a QR code walking around with you all points of time to pay, just show your...
Well, we did put a chip into our 2,000 rupees.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think? Do you think this is something that might happen, could happen? To what extent can it happen?
Yeah, I mean, two parts to it, right? One is I'm sure it'll happen. Two is no one's going to remember this simplified episode in 10 years if it doesn't happen to hold us accountable. So, hey, with that latitude, No, but I think it will be obviously the way of doing things, right? So, and it has a lot of practical uses as well, right? So, uh, for instance, just look at how learning in itself has been democratized by the internet, right? And I speak from personal experience as a person who had nothing to do with music at all for 34 years. One day when I was bored in the lockdown, I bought a ukulele on a whim. And for the last 20 days, I've been actually trying to play it, right? And it's all because there's a structured course on YouTube that's readily available, right? So I wouldn't have imagined that I could have done, I mean, not like I play great or anything, but I wouldn't have imagined that I would have stuck with something like this for 20 days by sheer, you know, feedback that I would have received that you're terrible at it, right? But now that concept has entirely changed. So the metaverse, in some senses, would be the next level of that, where you actually sort of get to hang out with people who think like you, act like you, who you want to be with, and are not tied to anything physical. So whatever enables that, uh, I'm sure lots of people.
Yeah, so it's sort of like the best of the best parts of the internet and the physical world coming
The
together
promise
in
is
some
that.
sense. Yeah, yeah. So it's either the best of or the worst of. We're just not quite sure which one it is yet. But that's fascinating. And when you spoke when your eyes lit up, Tony, when you said learning and the internet, I was almost certain that you were going to talk about how your daughter's education was saved during the pandemic. But it's interesting that you chose to go the ukulele route. But yeah, absolutely. And I think whenever people diss a technology right now, I always like to rewind to a time when people used to diss technologies that are very ubiquitous right now, like the internet, like the smartphone, and it's pretty much embedded into everything that we do right now, from work to just imagine if you go into work and they ask you for your number and they say, I don't have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Uh,
And something like WhatsApp didn't exist 10 years ago, or
yeah,
at least in the form that it is today,
it
right?
is
Like,
today. Yeah,
we used to still do SMSs. I mean, I was in B school in 2012. I remember we still needed that free SMS pack every
back.
day
Yeah.
to sort of get through life, right? But now think of just WhatsApp. So in a few years, things change quite dramatically.
Quite dramatically. It's amazing how it go from being a novelty to something that is vital for not entertainment but business and life itself in
Yeah.
some ways. Uh,
And now they've sort of switched on to one view messaging as well, which just goes to show any technology is just a way for people to exchange nudes in a better manner. So think of what virtual reality holds there as possibility.
What's that rule 34 of the internet?
Yeah.
As they say. It's coming for it's amazing actually that and a sign of our maturity that we actually did one entire episode about what the implications uh, of the metaverse and virtual reality could be without referring to that. So that was the last episode, but fair enough. All right. The second implication that I think is, because we are going to be spending more and more time in the metaverse, like that Shanpuri tweet thread that you had referenced in the previous episode. I think uh, I think homes are going to get smaller, because people are not necessarily going to now need you still probably need place to sleep and all that, but you're not going to place that much emphasis on the beauty of a home and all that. I think the home decoration craze and all that might peak in 2020-21, when the world had to go through a work from home experiment and Zoom backgrounds needed to look good and all that. But I think it'll peak there and it'll go down a little bit
Oh, I'm
after
going to
that.
tweak that slightly and say home sizes will get bigger, but the walls will get barer. Home size will get bigger because you don't necessarily need to congregate in a city anymore. So
Oh, fair. Yeah.
you can sort of go to like larger spaces. But walls don't need to be decorated anymore because you're spending time in the metaverse, and that's where you want to show off.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Actually, I can understand that. Yeah, yeah. All right, that makes complete sense. But so, if you're going to spend about 90% of your time in the sort of metaverse, I think that then leads into the next point that I want to make, which is NFTs will finally make sense, and decking up your virtual avatar and all that will become more of a thing. The signs for that are already there right now. If anyone has played Animal Crossing or even Fortnite for that matter, there's a lot of economy. One part of the entire economy and the part of the game is just buying uh, virtual avatars and skins and even things like dance moves and things of that sort. So doing up your virtual self is already a thing. And in this year, 2021, is the year we are recording for anyone who might actually be listening in 2030. To go back and say, oh, the Simplified guy said this back in 2021. So this year, NFTs have taken off like crazy, and it's easy to write it off as just part of this crypto bubble and people spending lots of money for what is essentially a JPEG or a video clip. But I think while that might be true in many ways, but I think it goes a lot beyond that, right? It's also about digital owner. It's about ownership of something that exists in the digital space. And as we live more of our lives virtually, I can actually see this becoming a thing. Like if I have the only digital version of a painting that exists and that can be verified via the blockchain, yes, you might be able to use some fancy metaverse recording technology to take a 3D recording of my painting and put it up on your wall and claim that you have it. But a simple right click will show that it's actually a duplicate or something like that. In fact, it's probably going to be easier to do that. Sort of checking. So yeah, I think NFTs and all that will finally make sense. I'm keen to know what you think about that, because that segues into something that you had said last time, which was about the whole creator economy and stuff taking off as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to sort of wind it back, right? And this is not far-fetched at all, because I would assume in the last 1 year, people have actually made significant investments in their web camera and the microphone that they use, because that's also parts of your personality that are now coming through, because a lot of
great point. So something in the physical world, but which has an implication on how you present yourself in the so-called virtual world. Wow.
So which also means then, going back to your point around NFTs and creator economy, it just means that what your background or your avatar really needs to enhance your personality, right? It's not always just necessarily about brag value. So we will see new kinds of art, new kinds of things that can enhance your avatar and your personality in the metaverse, and all of that will be enabled by NFTs and stuff like that, right? So merchandise that is specific to certain creators, which can then be leveraged by brands or whatever. So
100%. I love how the metaverse helps solve the problem of gene technology leading towards eugenics and all that by building that into itself. So you don't now need to engineer real world perfect babies. You can just show off your imperfect real life baby in a perfect way in the metaverse. Absolutely, fascinating. And this could be a whole bunch of things, right? This could be right now NFTs you can say that they are basically digital JPEGs or video clips, like how the NBA is doing. Like you get to own the clip where, say, LeBron James does something really cool. And I know that you definitely would not mind owning the NFT of the winning moment from Adelaide or something like that. But it's also like, what are the other kinds of NFTs that could exist in the future, right? Apart from right now, we are thinking they could be collectibles, they could be clothes, they could be exclusive things from rock stars and things like that. But who knows what could come up in the future? Can there be like a virtual smell or a color that only one person owns or something like that? I think the possibilities for this are endless. It's quite exciting, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how this works, but basically like ticketing to real world events, right? So we all know that it's unmatched, the experience that you get in a physical concert or a physical sporting event. But also the quality of viewing is not the greatest in that, right? So you're there for the environment and the atmosphere. now you can actually marry the best of both worlds, right? So you can be at the World Cup final that is happening somewhere, but do it virtually and get the best view out of that because you have so many different camera angles or 3D models or whatever that'll enable that.
Yeah, interesting. So it's almost like you are building in artificial scarcity or artificial views, or I mean, in the sense I can like just taking your stadium analogy ahead, the more expensive seats will have access to a certain webcam that is positioned in a certain way. No, I mean, that's one way of thinking about it, right? Like where you have things like that, or you have other perks like you are invited onto the field or you are given a virtual hug by the footballer or something of that sort. Fascinating. This could end up leading into all sorts of things. The creator economy, how that meets this, I think that's also going to be very interesting. All kinds of art are going to be done. I think there are new forms of art that we can't even think of right now. Like it's easy to just think that whatever we're doing right now in 2D is going to become 3D in some sense, but I think it's going to become a lot more nuanced and a lot more exciting than that. This is quote I found again. This is Zuckerberg himself talking in an interview with Ben Thompson of Strategy. Again, the same interview I referenced last time. I'm just going to read out that quote over here. I've talked a bunch about how I think that we should design our computing platforms around people rather than apps. And I guess that's sort of what I'm talking about. On phones today, the foundational element is an app. That's the organizing principle for your phone and how you navigate it. But I would hope that in the future, the organizing principle will be you, your identity and stuff. I know it's, yeah. Your digital goods, your connections, and then you will be able to pretty seamlessly go between different experiences and devices on that. I think that building that upfront is going to be pretty important to maximizing the creative economy, and this is going and making it so that somebody who's building one of these digital goods or experiences can make it as valuable as possible because it just works across a lot of different things. It's interesting that he started thinking of this from a creator economy lens from the day go, and maybe that's important to fight off a few reputational battles that he has right now, and people probably wondering like how are developers going to fit into this whole thing. But yeah, absolutely, I think enabling this platform is going to lead to a whole, I think everything, right? Every part of education, entertainment, work, within entertainment, live performances, sporting events, music events, gaming is all just going to be like, imagine Twitch, but you are actually talking as your avatar, and probably what Twitch is today looks extremely futuristic to even us when we were playing FIFA 97 or something a few decades ago. The mind boggles when we think about things like this. So let us do one thing. Let us take a little bit of a break to unboggle our minds and come back and talk about the rest of this.
Hello, everybody. It's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Naan Curry, we broadcast our 50th episode. Sadaf and Archit invite one of the best food researchers in the country, Vikram Doctor. They discuss Indian street food, small-town delicacies, and the history of our most common food habits. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth explores how data can be woven into a story through artificial intelligence. On Tere Mere Raste, Kesho takes us to Dehradun, a city whose foundations were laid by a Sikh guru, and tells us how his famous basmati rice was introduced to it by an Afghan king living there in exile. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by former Indian cricketers and hosts of the Khel Niti podcast, Sabah Karim and Nikhil Chopra, to talk about tons and tons of cricket. Tune in for a very fun episode. And don't miss the festive season special on the Habit Coach podcast, where Ashton Doctor talks about how our eating habits change during festivals. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slate Coffee, Intel, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back to Simplified, where Tony and I are speculating what 2030 will look like. Apart from the fact that we won't be able to see the color of the sky anymore, it won't matter because we are all going to be in the metaverse where the sky is blue at all points of time, and climate change is just the name of another Radiohead album. So let us move on. We spoke about how VR devices could become ubiquitous, how homes will either get smaller or bigger depending on which one of us you agree with. and that NFTs and all that will finally make sense. The next thing that I want to sort of say is kind of related to that point that we spoke about, creator economy, but slightly more professional. I think you're going to see a lot more very interesting careers coming up, and careers and fields actually coming up. I actually remember reading this, and I might have mentioned this in that one episode we did on the metaverse itself a few months back. Um, I was reading a Jobs of the Future report. I forgot who put it out. I think it was Cognizant who put it out. And you had a lot of the usual things that you expect, like cybersecurity and certain kinds like digital marketing and social media and all that. One of them I found was very interesting, which was virtual world builder. And I thought that is so fascinating that you actually have sort of a person who is going to architect a virtual world in very much the same way that you have an architect in real life. And it does not seem very ludicrous, because I'm thinking of some of the virtual experiences that have happened over the last couple of years. On Fortnite, musicians like Marshmello and Travis Scott have performed, and obviously they had to perform on something. Right now, whether that involved just an artist drawing a 2D image, or whether that involved technology or something slightly more involved that are actually creating a three-dimensional stage, it still is something. And last year, because a lot of students and universities couldn't have their graduation ceremonies, you had people painstakingly rebuilding their universities in Minecraft and having avatars going and receiving their diplomas or certificates. So if that's what's happening right now with the rudimentary technology we have in 2021, I would really think that by 25 or something, when the metaverse has become even more of a thing, that you will actually have paid professionals. I can imagine somebody being contacted by a company saying they're going to have a virtual offsite. These are the kind of things that we want. This is the kind of background that we want, and maybe even customize it. Our CEO likes this, our CTO likes this, our employees like this, so everyone needs to see things differently. Now you won't have to fight about where to go, because you can be wherever you want to be. So all these things could happen. So I mean, a virtual worlds builder could be one thing, but the broader point being, I think this whole thing will lead to some very interesting careers that go beyond just the creator economy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't even imagine the kind of things that will be there, but I can safely say that it will be much beyond anything that we predict
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, and I mean, one way of thinking about it is just imagine that the world that we are doing this in right now is actually somebody's metaverse, for all you know. Maybe what we are living. Oh wow, it somehow just seems that everything goes back to either the Matrix or what are the Tom Cruise film, Minority Report, or Ready Player One. Like there are these like few science fiction movies that all just seem to be pointing towards what the future is supposed to be, right? That, and of course the social network. But just think about it. There could be, like we spoke about NFTs a while back, there could be antique shops for NFTs, like the crypto kitties and all that were the first few NFTs. Right now I can imagine these guys buying them, putting them up over there. People have said, the guys who buy NFTs, they say we eventually hope to have the guy who bought the Beeple thing, the Indian origin guy who stays in Singapore. He said something like he imagines that many NFTs will actually be showcased in a virtual gallery sometime in the future. If a virtual gallery exists, then think about everything else that could possibly be over there. There could be virtual police to look out for thieves who have stolen virtual goods online. It's very interesting. And how different is that going to be? Like, if you're a virtual thief, does that make you a real world thief, for example? Like, so it's going to lead to some very interesting careers, situations, things that we don't even know exist. You know what's kind of scary, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this to you as a parent, is that many of these things that we can't fathom right now as careers are things that are actually going to become a reality in about 5 years' time. Yeah, so I am teaching a bunch of undergraduate kids at a university who are all like 15, like 16, 17, 18 types. And one of the things that I keep telling them is like the world is going to keep changing. So it's very likely that by the time you guys actually start working, the things that I teach you right now might become completely obsolete, because who knows whether Instagram is still going to be around in the same shape or form, if at all, in just 3 years' time. And then you have something like virtual world builder, which seems like a completely different thing, which could be very much a reality in about 5 years' time. It's kind of,
Yeah.
The
I think going back to the other reference that which is Yuval Noah Harari basically talking about, I don't know if he said it, but our parents basically worked for one company their entire lives. We work in different companies, and our children will have different careers every 5 years. So you won't just have like one career your entire life. You'll be doing different things because things will change at that dramatic pace. So
so how will you answer the question, what do you do? Right. Here we can say, okay, I was a digital marketing guy, but I've moved from this agency to this company to what? Yeah, you're right, absolutely. Oh yeah, yesterday I was a neurosurgeon. Today I am a TikTok content. Actually, that's something that's happening right now also.
That's also because we're thinking in constructs of today, right? That you are defined by the job you do or the career you do. That will change, right?
That will change.
Your identity will be defined by, I mean, job is just one part of it, but there are like other things that you do. So
yeah, absolutely, 100%. So many interesting things to look out for over there. And if sensory things right now you can't smell or taste in the metaverse, maybe there's a way to bridge that in the future. Who knows? And then who knows what will happen? Just like how there is this in the world of marketing, there is this divide between digital marketing and the mainline marketing, as we call it. For every single profession, there could actually be a virtual something and a real world something. Like imagine if you break your leg in the metaverse. So do you go to a virtual doctor? Do you have virtual Medicare for that? What are the systems that are put in place to prevent, like for example, like it might seem ludicrous, but to prevent things like eugenics and all that happening in the metaverse, they might code in certain rules that there is going to be a chance of some things happening. If you break something, it will take X amount of time for it to recover, or you need to pay a certain amount of virtual money for it to be fixed. So all sorts of things could happen. So in some ways, the metaverse might not actually be very different from the real world. Who knows? So all very good things to think about when you are drunk or having a blast.
This is the perfect time to start a company of the future.
Actually, very interesting. My next point was actually going to be that I have written over here, number 6, digital stimulation. So I have always thought that the next level of drugs is not going to be chemical or whatever it is that the NCB wants to ban, but actually might end up being something digital. I think because let's face it, drugs and everything at the end of the day is something that's affecting various chemicals in your head. So what if scientists, researchers, somebody sitting at Facebook today might find out a way how to control these chemicals where you don't need to go through hoops to find drugs. You are just able to click on a certain image or have a certain sensory experience that simulates that kind of thing. So what would that digital stimulation rather be like?
I mean, already in
digital stimulation for your digital simulation. Yes, very proud of that. Yeah.
Already notifications have dopamine rushes attached to them, right? So it's a very real possibility. What else can you sort of trigger, and how can you do it in a controlled manner? And what is the economy there? Like your first 10 hits are free, and then you have to cough up.
Oh yeah. Wow. Somehow I think that this particular episode has about 10 different Hollywood plots already in it. Yeah. Wow, your first 10 hits are free, and then after that, oh yeah. I can imagine that. I can imagine that completely.
Freemium model.
Freemium model. The Wire, but wired.
Oh wow.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, and the last point that I have is security and hacking. Let's end on a cheerful note, at least the respect of the points that I have. So if digital stimulation can happen, NFTs can happen, we can communicate with each other, then what happens? Like I go back to the Shan VP tweet, right? Which is, if you're going to spend 90% of our time in the virtual world, what ends up happening if that virtual world is hacked? How is that 10% of us that stays physical, is that still safe in some sense, or are we going to be so scarred mentally and perhaps even physically in the Matrix, there's this famous scene, right, where the evil bro just pulls off the thing and the real avatar dies. And I never understood why that was a thing. If you kill somebody in the metaverse, why should your physical body die? I never understood that. It seems to be a needless plot point. But let's leave it be. There'll be Matrix bros coming after me. But that's the thing. Like how safe will we be? Like right now, if our computers are hacked, fair enough. Our lives will still go on. We can still eat. We can still communicate with the people we love and in other ways, etc. But what happens when 90% of our lives is lived there and our bodies are just a excuse to plug into the so-called metaverse? How is hacking going to be different? Imagine what misinformation and all that in the metaverse is going to look like. Not in terms of the metaverse itself, but using the underlying layers of, look at what the internet has done to spreading misinformation. So the metaverse, when all of us are plugged in and our brains are pretty much plugged in, it's going to be something else altogether. No?
Yeah, it is. I just had like a chill down my spine just thinking about the possibilities, right? So if you, think about the world as it exists, basically animals just need to do their sort of physical things, right? Which is they need to eat, sleep, poop, and probably reproduce and be happy with that. We say humans have the greater ability to think and all of that, and that's what sets us apart. But also, we need resources to further the thinking and stimulation process, right? So, the same brains that existed 300 years ago, if they existed today, they would have reached a completely new level just by virtue of where you start off the resources to do that and stuff like that. Now, if those resources and the network is going to be in a different sort of plane, which is the virtual world, and you're suddenly cut off from it, I think more than the physical aspect of your being, that new reality will actually be very, very, scary and altering if it goes away one day. You're basically reduced to a shell of an existence, similar to an animal today, probably, but no disrespect to animals, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's pretty profound, actually. If you think about it, it's a fair point to make, and I wanted to say something, but I completely forgot about what it was. But on that note, just imagine if I remember what I was going to say. The more I think about things like this and have these discussions, especially with with you guys, is I think nature will look at humans and say, this thinking thing, let's not try that again. Let's
that's where all the trouble started.
That's where all the trouble started. Like for millions of years, you had people doing exactly like you had animals doing exactly what you said. They were sleeping, they were eating, they were reproducing once in a while, they were pooping, and everything was fine. It's like then the gods or natures, depending on your point of view, said, okay, what if we gave them just the ability to think a little bit? And they must have been so excited. Oh, our little boy is like rubbing stones together. He's making fire. He can think for himself. And then I'm just going to go for a nap. And then they did what? They spread. What is this internet thing? And then let's say, let's not do that again. And after we cease to exist, we will just be a blip in the overall planetary timeline.
But this reminds me of that other influence of ours, which is the Douglas Adams quote about dolphins, right? So people had always imagined that we are more intelligent than dolphins because we've achieved so much.
Yeah.
And dolphins always believed that they were far more intelligent because they didn't do any of this. They used their superior intelligence just to stay in the water and not do any of this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this thing, right? The sign of intelligent life being actually out there is the fact that they haven't tried to get in touch with us. So it's probably like that, right? Like it's just like how you might want to go and talk to somebody, and then I come and say, no, don't talk to them right now. They're in a bit of a mess right now. Just go after some time. Maybe aliens are that way. Like, oh, there looks like there's life over there. And then I was like, no. The humans are on it right now. Just give it about 200 more years, then go. I think that might be. I think that's very, very, very possible. You wanted to say something.
So the other part that can come and put a full stop to all of this is, if you want to add the adjective needless, but legislation. So like how we see cryptocurrency ads all around us in India, but also we're waiting for what the governments of various countries come up with in terms of regulations.
Yeah.
And equally on the other side, law catching up fast with like things like privacy and stuff like that, whether it's GDPR, this, that, and the other, right? So to draw a parallel, like they developed CRISPR as a technology, but very quickly all governments said, stop, don't do it. Right?
Yeah.
So because it's Facebook and they're trying to get a consortium going of the world's largest, richest sort of tech companies, they might be able to pull it off, but you never know what lawmakers can think about. And sometimes, maybe rightly so, just to put a stop to something before it happens.
Rightly said. And as you can see, there's plenty of, and any of these could become a reality or virtual reality, as the case may be, on the metaverse. So if any of you have any points that you would like to send us, please do so. And we might even talk about them in a future episode of Simplified. What if, Tony, and I will leave you with this, what if the aliens and gods that we have speculating about when conscious, they actually exist in the metaverse?
Ooh.
What if the metaverse was just been, and like, what if, here is where they are. So what if, like,
this is the final destination?
Yeah, this is the final destination. Yeah, maybe the gods are actually inside the metaverse. Like, finally, you did it. Finally, you tried to put Zuckerberg through Congress. What was that all about?
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
That'll be awesome. Yeah. So I think that's a good conclusion. I don't think we can get any more imaginative than that on this show. All right. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Again, tell us what you think about the metaverse. Are you optimistic about it, pessimistic about it? And what your predictions that that things could be? And we will be back next week with hopefully more of a cast who, after they finish doing their on-ground research.
Hopefully less profundity and more bad jokes.
So since Naren's not here, let me try to sign off. Stay safe, stay real in this world of where everything is virtual. Stay real, guys. And stay simple. Yeah. Stay simplified. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
A wise man once said, traveling, it makes you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller.
Well, listen to such travel stories and experiences exploring India on the Musafir Stories with us, Saif and Faiza.
Catch us on the IVM website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Are you looking for finance products and services that can enhance your personal finance experience? Are you looking for a space to talk about your financial product or service? And are you looking for a crisp talk show where the conversation is all about money? Well, your search ends here. Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta and I'm host of the Paisa Paisa podcast, and I invite you for the conversation about your personal finance on each Monday on the IVM podcast app or the website or on any podcast streaming platforms. See you folks.